Hey family, welcome to Phie.Love Intuitive Conversations. If you like my content, please do like, share and subscribe. It helps get my content out there. Hopefully evoke some inspiration into whoever might get their eyes on it. And if there's any hate, negativity, please do keep your things on your side of the street, okay? It won't be acknowledged. Today I've been inspired to talk about how little we give concern to the struggles, and I mean this as women, okay? As women, as society, we don't give enough concern towards men and the struggles they go through and the expectations out of them from family, friends, women, just society in general. I don't think we give men enough compassion. I don't. And I'm not excusing bad behavior. I'm not excusing men who put women in very uncomfortable and unnecessary compromising positions, because I'm one of those women who have been there. And regardless of me having been there, it doesn't mean that I can't consider that a part of me having been there was part of being in the energy of a man who was unhealed, a man who doesn't understand what it is to genuinely maybe be loved, feel love, recognize love, mature into love. There's so many of them out there, and I don't think that as a society and as women we give men enough compassion in that regard, or enough understanding, or think about how we can put the effort out to contribute to healing men too in that regard. I think society has programmed women, has programmed the idea of a man's role in a family so much and so heavy, and intertwined all those expectations, the supposed tos, the lines that attach to he's a man if he, or he's not a man if he, all of those things. Have we ever taken a step back and looked at the men that we exist around and realized that those men are unhealed? They're little boys in grown-ass bodies, okay, who live in a world that expects them to be gunning to be a sole provider in a household because that makes him a man, gunning to be the greatest pillar of strength to his family consistently, because that makes him a good man, a man who has to be the best employer, the best father, the best husband, according to what's been groomed into women on TV, among their friends, examples that have been given to us in books, and what people put as their best foot forward in public, you know. when do we ever take the time and energy to step back and consider maybe what men might be going through too? You know, as much as women, they need healing. They should be allowed to have a breakdown once or twice a year. As much as there's a lot expected out of women in society, because yes, there's a lot of stuff expected out of women. Can we soften our hearts as well to the fact that there's a lot expected out of men, and that those expectations on men don't actually really provide for them to exercise their softer sides, to acknowledge the parts of themselves that need tending and need healing, and make them feel confident enough to step forward and be like, hey, you know, I'm not feeling too great inside. I'm not feeling too confident. I'm not feeling too secure. I'm not feeling very motivated. I'm not feeling like my job is giving me what I need. Because in many situations, if he steps forward and says those things, society has automatically put the perspective onto men that they're weak. So a lot of them overcompensate with ego and all these expectations that are just groomed into them and somehow made a part of how they operate. The expectations have somehow blended and intertwined into their own personal goals. I think that's bullshit. That's just me. Okay. But it's the world we live in. Women are expecting men who are measured according to the kind of money they make and the ego they're capable of slinging around, to be the men who will satisfy their love needs, their insecurities, their psychological needs. And on top of all of that, they still expect these men to provide, to be the pillar of strength. It's a lot. We get so angry and we label our men in all sorts of ways, but have you also taken a step back to consider what your man, or what a man who maybe has a bad attitude or doesn't show softer sides, or who seems like a shitty example for a human being, what he might have come from, why he's that way? Has anyone ever helped him or stepped forward to him to have him feel like he's cared for and he's seen, and that someone is concerned as to why he's that way, and make him feel comfortable enough to take a time out and look into it? What if he was raised by a shitty father who treated his mom like shit, and his mother responded to that treatment with giving, with love, with a smile on her face, and a brush off phrase that we can hear, oh, you know how your father is, Ah, he's just a man. Ah, he's just tired. Ah. A man who's normalized into that, thinking that that kind of behavior equates being tired and being just a man, but doesn't actually learn in his life that that kind of behavior maybe is the result of having bad examples and being treated badly when he was younger and normalized into some bullshit. Do we take the step back to show a bit of compassion towards that, and that maybe a man needs some healing in that regard? Because I know a lot of women in the background run to their friends, start kicking and screaming, bitching about what this man does, what he doesn't do, you know, A, B, and C. But you know that in your getting to know him process, you should have taken the time and shown the interest in trying to also make him feel comfortable enough to maybe put a step forward in healing with you. Not only that we go according to what society has programmed us to measure a man according to how he can keep a household up, how he can send your kids to school, how he can put food on the table, how he can hold you up when maybe you lose out on a job opportunity or want to take a break and explore your other options. Have we maybe considered that the man would like to do that and give his life to those kinds of things too? Why does his life begin and end on how he has to be groomed into not paying attention to what's happening inside of him, or putting as much importance as he should on what's happening inside of him, and recognizing when he's out of balance, and rather groomed into how he's going to provide, elevate, look, grow his ego, grow his bank, how he's going to be accepted among his peers, or how he won't be accepted among his peers and his family if he doesn't make something out of himself that's according to society's standard. And you know, on the other side, if women were raised by mothers who also were just in positions of being hushed and happy with a man who brings the bread to the table and seem to just keep life going, if a man didn't actually tend to the more softer things, then of course it's a cycle of take, and no one paying attention to how they need to show up for one another in a relationship or in a household. And what example are you giving to the children that are growing up around you? I I think we need to give our men a little bit more credit for doing the really hard stuff in life and having it expected out of them to the T, and not shown much mercy if they stumble and fall for some time. I think that if we expect our men to show up in our families, for our children, and for us, that we need to also encourage and allow them the time and space. If they seem like they're reaching a point in their lives where they're busting at the seams, becoming unnecessarily irritable, maybe not giving themselves the kind of self-love and self-care that as women we are so good at rambling and going on about. Our men need that too. Our men need to not be made in society less because they have softer sides and they have unhealed areas about themselves. That they don't get to have the time, space. Yeah, that they don't get to have the time or the space to tend to those things about themselves. And I'll tell a quick story. So before I moved, I found myself in the vicinity of a man who was he was literally a few months away from getting married. He's engaged, and we were at a friend's place, and he was there and he was crying. And when I just listened to him and heard what he was crying about, he was crying about feeling so not worthy, not good. He has two kids with this woman that he's about to marry, and he was crying. And he wasn't crying because he didn't love her. He wasn't crying because I don't know, he was crying because he didn't feel worthy. He was crying because he hasn't actually in his entire life taken the time out for himself to heal. And here he was crying because he felt like he wasn't in a position emotionally to show up for his family, show up for his children. His wife or his fiance at home is on his ass about not being who he needs to be, but not paying attention to the fact that this man himself is busting at his seams. This man needs to offload. This man needs to take the time now, take a portion, a week or two in his life, even though that's very short, take a week or two in his life to cater to his own needs, to reflect back on his own life, because he's about to take a big jump, a big change, a big leap in his life. Some sort of purging needs to happen. But instead, as he was breaking down, he was being told in his surroundings that he's not coming to the table. But how can he if he is so depleted? You still want him to cook, you still want him to contribute, to be romantic, to think for you, think for the family, think for himself, think for his job, think for his mother. So many of them are so attached to their mothers and have to also give themselves to their mothers because their mothers are demanding of them as well while they're trying to cultivate new families for themselves. He just needed a bit of a time out, and he felt so guilty, he felt so bad that he needed to look after himself, that he needed to reflect back on his life, on his childhood, on his issues with receiving and giving, and what about him is making him feel so unworthy right now. So guys, let's just give our men a little bit more compassion. Let's encourage them to take the time and the space to heal on their own. Encourage them to also go into spaces where they can hear their thoughts and think about what it is that will make them happy too. Because we just expect men all the time to cater to us, to provide to us. To be an upstanding example to us, to society, to everything. Which I don't think is completely fair. It's not fair. How much of the content and healing stuff online is catered towards our men and how they perceive the world and what they could possibly be going through. It's just output, 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 output for these men all the time. And then they become so dead inside, they become shitty partners, they become abusive, they become stone walls. Because the moment someone wants to pour into them, they don't know how to deal with it. There's so much to talk about on this topic, and I definitely would love to get into it again. And if anyone has, any view to give, positive, please, I would love to hear about it. I'll pull a card today from flower therapy. I hope this talk and this conversation will help women, men, teenagers, family members who are expecting out of their men and their families. I hope it will help them fall back a little bit and tap into their softer sides and see where they can support the men around them in their lives. Okay, I've pulled this here, Become the True You, and it says, show the world who you really are and what you were born to do. I think that can resonate with all of us, right? We all need to get into a space where we can feel like we're operating in a space where we're doing what we were born to do. And if you don't know what you were born to do, take a time out of your life for some time and figure it out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for your time and your energy with me. Bye.